morning everyone and welcome to our March Ordinary Council meeting. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. Today we have Reverend Dave Bailey here to lead us in our prayer.
Good morning everyone. Today, councillors, mayor, staff of the council, journalists and citizens of our region. Thanks for inviting me again into your chambers to open your council meeting in prayer. For those of you who'd like to, please join with me and I'll lead us in prayer. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we do want to thank you today for the great privilege we have to live here in the Southern Downs in our region at this time. And Lord, we want to thank you for that strange and historic miracle of democracy, for that almost accidental coincidence of human culture that is representative government. We want to thank you for the sometimes ugly beauty of diluted power. We thank you for the strange and unpredictable beast that is collective decision making, that sometimes goes our way and sometimes does not. As our regional council meets today and as we citizens look on respectfully, we ask you, Lord, to please restrain those latent impulses in all of our hearts that lend ourselves towards tyranny and greed and the desire to dominate other people. Instead, Lord, we pray for your grace, that you would help us to speak gracefully. Father, we want to thank you for the settled peace in which we live and move and have our being. For our families here, we thank you for our homes, our friends and our community. We thank you for the onset of autumn and the turning of the season, which we notice slowly. We thank you for the prospect of gathering once again for Anzac Day to remember. We thank you for the recent rains which speak of hope for tomorrow, for running creeks and filling dams, and the prospect of better crops and healthy animals. We thank you for the bonds which tie us to one another, for the connections which give our lives together here in this place at this time meaning and purpose and hope. So Father, with these in mind, we see that these men and women before us, our councillors whom we elected by our own hand, reflect the best of our aspirations as well as our anxieties, and also our promises to one another to try our best to live well together. We pray that you'd help us as citizens to respect our councillors and to honour them as we honour one another, and to trust them now to strive together for our shared good in a suffering world. Please help our councillors to serve us as citizens with you in mind, to speak the truth in love for our benefit, to avoid their very real temptations to be two-faced, and instead to cultivate our trust rather than to corrode it, and to be representative of their people, yet accountable and always ultimately to you. Father, lastly, we pray that you grant us all grace for today and wisdom for the decisions we make, both big and small, that affect the people that we are all responsible for. Grant us your peace, we pray, and please, Lord, show us your love. In the name of Christ we ask these things. Amen. Good morning and thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any condolences this morning, councillors? Okay. Attendance and apologies. We have all in attendance and no apologies. Reading and confirmation of minutes. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting held on Wednesday, 19 February 2025 be adopted. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Bartley and a seconder. Councillor Richters, thank you. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 5.1, we have a recommendation that Council receive the report and note the contents. Do I have a mover of that? Councillor McDonald, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Pidgeon. Any questions or comments on that report, councillors? No, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any declarations this morning? Councillor McDonald, item number?
13.4, Mayor.
Any other councillors this morning? No? Okay, go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Mayor, I have a declarable conflict of interest in 13.4. I have a pending matter with the OIA that concerns Fred Rogers Dam. I will leave the room.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDonald. Mayoral minute. I have a mayoral minute to move today in accordance with section 21 of the council meetings policy PL CS 036 that council amend the agenda for today's ordinary council meeting to include late agenda item 17.2. That's a procedural motion, so all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. We have no notices of motion. Reading and consideration of correspondence. We have a recommendation that the report of the Chief Executive Officer in relation to correspondence be received. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor McDonald. Any comments or questions on that?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say that I think it's fantastic that the state government have written back to us about the Leslie Dam camp area, and their letter seems quite positive, and they seem to be willing to work collaboratively with us on moving maybe towards a public ownership continued model. So I thank them for our consideration.
Councillor McDonald.
Mayor, likewise, I concur with your sentiments, Councillor Richters, because I believe this is a facility that has been underutilised for the last 6 years and has great potential value, and I'm glad that the state government is actually recognising that and starting to move towards looking at other purposes apart from sand. It can be a benefit to our community, and I'm absolutely sure of that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is all in favour of that? Unanimous, thank you. Portfolio reports. We have 3 portfolio reports this month. First up, we have a recommendation that council's secure communities update 2 portfolio report be received. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Pidgeon, thank you. Councillor Richters, do you want to?
Mayor, it was just a short update this month in light of last month's report maybe being too long. Just wanted to highlight some of the major events that are happening in our community over the next 9 months, and I really encourage everyone to get out and support these major events that are happening with their attendance and their buying of tickets and all the other things that go along with these events. So encourage people to get involved. Likewise, I would also like to encourage community groups who do have events happening this year that maybe are not yet listed on Council's Southern Downs and Grenada Belt tourism page to please go ahead and register themselves and upload their event so that we can all be aware of when their events are happening, and we as council can assist them with the publicising of their event.
Thank you very much, Councillor Richters. Okay, all in favour of receiving that report? Unanimous, thank you. The second report today is we have a recommendation that Council's Productive Communities Portfolio Report be received. Do I have a move for that? Councillor Pidgeon, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor McDonald. Thank you. Did you want to speak to the report at all, Councillor Pidgeon?
Yes, please. So firstly, pest management. I just want to speak on that because it is such a large issue in our community, particularly with feral pigs, wild dogs, and feral cats. This has been not an issue, this is an ongoing issue, but we as council have partnered with Feral Scan to develop an app to try and track this pest activity, because if we're able to track this pest activity and gain data on where these animals actually are, we're able to get locations and their impacts, which will allow us to go to state and federal to argue our point out that we need to deal with this problem on a large scale. So I ask that everyone takes time to put the Feral Scan app on their phone it is so important that we join together. We're in a unique opportunity here. We have eyes all around, which a lot of councils don't have. But if we're able to simply it's so easy to use, click on where you are, it's a secure platform, so the information that you're putting in there isn't out there for everyone to access. It's just allowing us to gather that data. So it's just tapping on if you have a wild dog or a wild dog sighting or a feral pig sighting. There's plenty of other things on there which you will be able to see as well. But from that information, we are able to move forward with our biosecurity pest management for the area. So that's very, very important, and I do encourage everyone to join together and to help us along that journey, because with that early detection, it will allow us to really intervene and try and get some collaboration across the pest management there. So also, I'd just like to quickly just chat to Warwick River Trust. It's a very important thing, river conservation. We have a new team on that Warwick River Trust, and we're focused on building a shared vision, engaging with property owners and addressing and enhancing community collaboration. So I just wanted to put it out there that we are looking at working with landholders along those river systems. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to echo those sentiments once again. As a farmer in the region, I certainly took the advice from the last Pest Committee meeting, and I actually have started using that, and all my shooters, hunters, trappers are all now utilising that particular device and program. And I will say for mine, one of my trappers brought in 7 dogs in the last week, so it gives you some idea of the severity of the problem and the amount of attacks that I have been undergoing with sheep, etc. It is a major concern in this region, and addressing it is very, very important. So that scan or that particular program actually allows us to track those animals and work out ways in which the best way to approach let's just say removal or extraction of that vermin. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald, all in favour of receiving that report? Unanimous, thank you. And finally, we have a recommendation that Council's Resilient Communities Portfolio Report be received. Do I have a mover for that, Councillor McDonald? Yes, and a seconder. Councillor Richters, thank you. Would you like to speak to your report, Councillor McDonald?
Obviously, the community is well aware that Tropical Cyclone Alfred made its way very, very slowly, threatening some major areas within southeast Queensland, including ourselves. We are very lucky that we didn't cop the main severe impacts of this particular cyclone. However, there were some heavy falls suffered up on the escarpment, and that was to be expected. I'd like to congratulate our staff, Michael, Pia, James, the volunteers and the community associations, being the police, the SES, the ambulances, TMR, those involved in education as well, and those that were certainly, there was a very high attendance at those meetings, and I was extremely impressed with the way in which it was dealt with and handled from our perspective as SDRC. Now, we were really lucky. It really didn't cross the range in a big way. So from the initial impacts or predictions in that it could be anywhere up to 700 mils, some areas only got within a couple of inches, and that was well received by the farmers, but certainly gave us a chance for the LDMG to go through our paces. So thank you very much for those that were involved, because it was a fairly hectic time, and as I said, a good chance for us to actually test the team and take it through its paces. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes.
So thanks, Cynthia, that's a great report. I'd just like to add to that too. Cynthia has noted, or Councillor McDonald, has noted in her report that the first recovery meeting has been held since the disaster was completed, and I just want to ensure the community that the recovery team is working hard behind the scenes to ensure that any person that needs assistance through any area to do with recovery from that, because there were some things that were affected due to flooding and even the wind as well. So anyone that needs assistance, please contact council and our recovery team will be there to assist you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, all in favour of receiving that report? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 12.1, the Chief Executive Officer Status Report. We have a recommendation that Council receive and note the Chief Executive Officer's Status Report. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Dean, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Windle, thank you. Any questions or comments on that report? Yes, Councillor Husson.
I've just got a question on in the questions and notice that Councillor Wantling raised, agenda item 5.1. In the response, it says there are the three groups: Granite Belt Choir Association, Stanthorpe Choir Inc. and Stanthorpe District Pipe Band. I am fairly involved in that space, and I am fairly certain that there are not two choirs in Stanthorpe, so one of them must be incorrect.
I think you'll find there's another band.
I'm sure there are three groups, but one of those names there is not, doesn't exist. It's wrong name.
We'll take that on notice and get that corrected. Yep. And Councillor McDonald, you had?
Yes, I did. In regards to 13.4, the application for permanent road closure, it states in there that there was a notice to show cause that was actually applied on the 8th of July 2024. Are we allowed to be privy to what occurred in regards to the notice to show cause, or is that considered completely operational?
We'll take it on notice.
Thank you. The reason why, sorry, for further explanation, the reason why I asked that is there seems to be a number of situations arising where the horse is coming before the cart. Sorry, the cart's coming before the horse, I'll get the right way around. In which people are retrospectively applying for things after they've done them. I would like to see them actually done in the correct order, if possible.
I think it's an issue that happens all around the world where people realise that they've encroached somewhat, and there's often a fix. But yes, we'll take that one on notice, Councillor.
I'll make sure I get the horse and cart right.
All right, all in favour of that motion? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 12.2. We have a recommendation that Council adopt the amendments to Councillor portfolios included as Appendix A, and that changes to the Councillor portfolio policy as presented. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Windle, and seconded Councillor Pidgeon. Thank you. Does anyone want to speak to the motion?
So I'm happy to speak to that motion. As people are very well aware that there are a lot of community out there that during the election time particularly that were really keen to see us all have portfolios, and we have achieved that. We're just looking at making some changes just to streamline a few things and maybe disconnect a little bit from the operational side of things, because a lot of those portfolios did have a lot of operational things in there that we really didn't need to get down into. So we have other means of asking questions and sending emails out through a different channel, so we can do that now, which is working really, really well. So I'm all in favour of change at any time if it's going to make things better for this organisation and for the councillors. So I'm happy to move forward with it.
Thank you, Councillor Windle. Is there anyone speaking against the motion? Councillor Hassler?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Deputy Mayor Windle that it's important to change if we feel that changes are needed. In this situation, I think this is something that we as a whole group of 9 councillors need to have a consultation around and have some big discussion around, and I agree that there are some changes that probably do need to be made, but I don't think that we have had that discussion as a group, and I would prefer to keep it as it is and have that discussion before we move to make changes that I don't believe have been thought fully through.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I really wonder whether we have the demonstrated need for portfolios at all. Might be a case of deja vu. They were tried in the previous council and they gave up on them after some difficulties again, delving into operational, causing a few problems. But it was deemed that some people were trying to be the minister of their portfolios and instruct, which was unfortunate, and therefore they were dropped in the last council. This time I see a lot of the areas that we're interested in are more of a state government nature. So really we adopt an advocacy role as a so-called portfolio holder rather than operational or getting involved in our own local councils. If you look at a lot of it, mental health, we advocate for that, absolutely, but we don't get involved in it. That's a state government issue. But we can certainly lobby state government to provide better services in that area. That's our role as a council, but we do not provide. So I think we've got to delineate what is state government responsibility and what is local government's core business to a large degree.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. Councillor
Mayor, with some of these portfolios, they're pretty large portfolios. For instance, tourism here. It's one of the largest economic drivers in our area. I just feel that this could be shared. I see you, I've got a bit of experience in this too, in tourism side of it. Maybe me and you could work together on this one and be in this and share this portfolio. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Watling. Ultimately,
Yeah, I'm not particularly satisfied with the proposed changes. Like Councillor Hazel, I think there's not really, at this point in time, a demonstrated need for change. And but I'm happy to listen to the conversation, and I think that's right, we haven't had that conversation in depth yet. So yeah, I'm not supportive of it going through today.
Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion that we lay the item on the table given the sentiment within the room. There are those people that feel that it needs further discussion, so at this point I would like to see that item laid on the table and for it to come back to a CIS for full discussion with councillors so that we can come to an agreement.
that's a procedural motion. Those in favour? That's carried. Councillors? Yes, Councillors Wantling, Richters, Dean, Histroical and McDonald. 4. And Councillors Bartley, Pidgeon and Damian. Moving on to item 13.1. We have a recommendation that Council receive and note the financial performance report as at 28 February 2025. Sorry. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder, Councillor Wantling. Any questions or comments?
I'll just have one today. It's 3. So just with how will council address the lower than expected income for rural fire brigade levies?
Yeah. Sorry. It's coming through me, Russell, and I'm deferring to the General Manager.
Yes, thank you. Can I refer it to you, please?
Thank you.
The email file is generally collection we undertake on behalf of the department, so normally the money comes in and we push it out as well. So the rates have been issued in March, so all of the money will come in the month of March as the reports focus on February. So you'll see huge amounts of money coming in this month and then we pay it without taking the department.
Councillor Richters.
I was just wondering if we could have a bit of an understanding, or if there's a bit of an analysis of why the fees and charges are higher than what we expected.
Thank you. I'll throw that to our CFO, thank you.
For the chair, councillors, in terms of fees and charges, there's a couple of areas where revenue is higher than anticipated budget. So one of the key areas is the sale yards. So when we did the original budget, the volume of transactions that we affected and considered as part of the budget bill was a little bit lower, mainly because the sale yard was going to go through a phase of constructions, and we felt that there would have been some operational implications coming out of it. But what we've seen the last couple of months, there has been higher volume of sales. So potentially we have seen anticipated actuals coming in a little bit higher than what the budget was. So there has been some additional revenue received there. And then similarly, what we've seen also in the water area, there is a couple of non-consumption related revenue that has come in a little bit higher than what we originally anticipated. So again, a lot of those are hard to predict when you're doing the budget. So we've sort of based them on the prior year actuals, but obviously the numbers are slightly different. So hopefully they are going to stay, so that might help our budget going forward.
Anyone else? All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 13.2, the recommendation that council adopt the revised schedule of general fees and charges for 2024-2025. Do I have a mover for that? Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Bartley, and a seconder, Councillor Pidgeon, thank you. Any questions or comments on that? All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 13.3, Procurement Policy. We have a recommendation that council adopt the following policies as presented. PLFS 010 Procurement Policy and PL 146 Use of Confidentiality Provisions in Council Contracts Policy. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder, Councillor Wantling. Thank you. Do we have anyone who wants to speak for or against the motion?
May I just like to say I think it's fantastic that we are effectively fulfilling one of many of our election commitments here to provide that there is more transparency and accountability in council, and I think it's demonstrated that we're able to achieve that by adding an additional policy to the procurement policy, specifically targeting confidentiality. So I'm completely supportive of it.
Mayor, can I just ask one question? What measures have been introduced to prevent conflicts of interest in the
Yes, thank you. Councillor Wantling, I'll ask you on that one.
Councillor, that's a very broad question that extends across the whole organisation other than just procurement. So there's a number of measures that are in place by the state government and by also our own legislation where senior staff in particular have to provide our own registers of key management personnel, as well as identifying before any procurement occurs any potential conflicts of interest. So those measures are already in place within the organisation.
Anyone else? No? All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 13.4. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. We have a recommendation that council provide a letter of support to the Amiens Historical Association supporting their request to relocate the Amiens Memorial Hall from Fred Rogers Camp to the Amiens Historical Association, subject to the removal, relocation and reinstatement being at no cost to council. The building is accepted in its current condition and state, and that the removal does not fail any conditions of the trusteeship of the reserve. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wantling and a seconder. Councillor Dean, thank you. Does anyone want to speak to that motion? No? All in favour? That's everyone except Councillor McDonald, who's out of the room. Can someone grab Councillor McDonald? Thank you. Michael? go on to a cup of tea. Okay, item 13.5, we have a recommendation that council note the minutes from the Southern Downs Youth Council Induction Day meeting held at the Warwick Town Hall on 27 February 2025 with the attached reports highlighting the outcome from the day. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Histroical, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Pidgeon. Does anyone want to speak to that motion?
Just thank you, Mayor, to say that it was an absolutely wonderful day. I would like to thank the staff for their organisation around that. There was a facilitator, but the staff had organised. It's a great bunch of kids on first impression, more than last year, so that's a wonderful start, I think. And I'm looking forward to what they can do this year.
Okay, Councillor Pidgeon.
I'd just like to congratulate not only the councillors with the portfolios there, but also the staff. Honestly, it was brilliant. It was a really, really well run day. The kids, it was great to see coming from a teaching perspective what they actually got out of it. And yeah, well done to everyone involved.
Mayor, just going through the actual meeting minutes and having a look at what the local youth issues were, two of them in particular come to mind: the gang trouble, that young people are wielding knives and hanging out in local parks in Warwick. They wanted to raise that through the council, and I think that that's important, that we potentially look at addressing that with the police, our local police. And finally, item number 9, the support for veterans, which I'm very impressed with, that our youth are actually wanting to engage with our veterans on a higher level. So for both of those, I think that they're important points and potentially ones that we could look at addressing or assisting, facilitating with as a council.
Sorry, I'll use the word reply.
I was just going to say, echo Councillor Pidgeon and Councillor Hazlett's remarks with the kids. They were a great bunch of kids, and I think our future is in great hands. And a fantastically run event as well. So I'm looking forward to the ideas they have to come up to council and mention.
I probably should add a little bit as well, given that I was one of the councillors in attendance that day too, and it was a pleasure to be there and to be associated as a mentor for that group of students. And I echo Councillor Dean's words there, and I think I say it every year that we have a youth council, every year that we get new students on board, and every year I say the same thing, that our future is in very good hands. And I think probably this is my 7th year that I've been involved in the youth council, so I keep repeating myself, but some of those students from the start are now out there in society as young adults and doing great things for our community. So we're going to keep seeing this evolve. We definitely have some really great young people in our region, and we're very, very lucky. So I'm looking forward to seeing the mentoring role continue with this new youth council and seeing what we can achieve. And Councillor McDonald, I can add to the local youth issues. They were all raised and they will be addressed throughout the time with the students, the council, the staff, and our group of mentors will delve into that a bit more and see what we can achieve by the end of this year with those students. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Okay, all those.
Can I just throw a reply there in that one? So yes, just Councillor Wendell's sort of covered it a little bit there, but other councillors may not be aware. So the intention is that there will be 4 mentor councillors throughout the year for that. And as you probably picked up with the discussion around the room, the 4 of us who were there at the first meeting were Councillor Wendell, Pidgeon, Dean and myself, because that fits quite nicely with the group size that we've got. One of the things that we hope to explore with the kids is, well, part of Youth Council is to learn about what the actual role of council is in our region. And so we will look at things like the role of council versus police in terms of security issues and who is responsible for what, and so that kids can learn a bit about that kind of thing. But I was incredibly impressed with the issues that they brought up. Almost all of them focused in some way around social awareness of other people outside of themselves. Whether that be mental health or safety or what it might be, but for, 14, 15, 16-year-olds to have such a concern and awareness of others around them, be it veterans, doesn't matter. It was so impressive to see. It was really heartwarming. So, thank you.
Okay, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 14.1, we have a recommendation that council, following the tender assessment, enter into a contract with BK Civil for the provision of unsealed road maintenance services for flood rectification works in the Southern Downs region, in accordance with the schedule of rates for the proposed treatments as provided in the tender, with a calculated value of $5,802,477.77, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into any variations to the contract terms as deemed necessary for the duration of the contract, and authorise additional works under the contract to QRA funding timelines for reconstruction works. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder. Councillor Wantling, thank you. Anyone want to speak to that motion? Yes, Councillor Bartlett.
I have questions, Madam Mayor. I have a question there where it says we'll be using the contractors as well as our own council crews. So will we be charging the cost of our own council crews back against that 5.8 million?
And through you, Mayor, and thanks for the question, Councillor. No, the 5.8 is actually for the external contractor.
Right.
If you remember, we've got approval of circa $13 million for the total recovery works. So we want to do a fair majority of the works ourselves with day labour, and then we externalise that contract work to make sure that we get the program hopefully completed by January, February next year.
Because I was of the understanding normally it had to be done by contract, not council.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thanks for the question. No, under the QRA we can do works ourselves which are authorised under the same rates that we've been paid to a contractor, and also we can use external contract assistance. So a combination of those two will get us the best result for the rectification of the works.
Councillor Richters.
Mayor, will this impact on our ordinary schedule of works for the unsealed road network? And how will this impact on us achieving our capital program for this year?
And through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Richters. I'll pass that over.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the question. No, this is why we programmed this out. We want to continue, obviously, our capital works that are planned for this year, including all of our unsealed road works. And the reason that we've got an external contractor is to assist us in actually undertaking that work in conjunction with our labour crews. So it's a totality of a program. Obviously, the flood recovery works for the January 24 event are a multi-year event, and obviously the works that are programmed for this year are designed for completion as much as possible for this calendar year, for this financial year.
Councillor Wantling.
Through you. Do we monitor the contractor's performance so we don't overrun it yet?
Yes, we do. Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 14.2, we have a recommendation that council, following tender assessment, enter into a contract with GenM Solutions for the project management of the January 2024 flood event based on the rates tendered, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into any variations to contract terms as deemed necessary for the duration of the contract. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Bartley, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Pidgeon, thank you. Anyone want to speak to that motion?
I will,
Councillor
Madam
Bartley.
Mayor. It's just showing we put faith in our procurement policy, and that's the way we'll deliver these things accountably and transparently.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. Anyone else? Councillor Richters.
And do we not have the capacity to project manage these works internally?
No, not at the moment. This is additional work on top of our usual capital program.
Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 14.3, We have a recommendation that council endorse the stage 2 2024 to 28 LGGSP application for the sewer relining project at Warwick and Stanthorpe 2025 to 28. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder. Councillor Dean, thank you. Anyone want to speak to that item?
Through you, Mayor, just quickly. What sort of lifespan do we get out of the sewer relining?
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question. We can get up to 30 to 40 years depending on the type of material we use for the relining, so it's a very good asset intervention.
Yeah, I would probably say that I think it's a great opportunity for us wherever we can get grants and subsidies for the significant amount of work that we need to do on our network. So it's good to see council committing to that. Does anyone else have anything? No? All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 14.4, we have a recommendation that council conduct a public engagement for the proposed Australiana and Waroona Park EV charging locations to inform the community of the installations and seek feedback before construction. Conditionally accept the offer from NRMA Electric Highways Pty Ltd to build, own and operate two 150 kilowatt to 180 kilowatt ultra rapid DC fast charger unit solutions at the council proposed location within Australiana Park, Warwick, and conditionally accept the offer from iCharge Solutions International for the desired location in Waroona Park, Stanthorpe for one 60 kilowatt and one 22 kilowatt charger. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Bartley and a seconder. Councillor Richters, thank you. Does anyone want to speak to that motion? Councillor Bartley.
Yeah, in the financial implications of the report, Madam Mayor, shows us achieving an income, and anything that achieves an income for council, I'm fully supportive of.
Councillor Wantling, sorry.
I just have some concerns in Waroona Park. There's a lot of families and elderly park there because it's a safe park where they can get the kids out of the car without going up and parallel parking up in the other street above that. We're looking at other options. Well, this is the option for this one, for those charges to take those.
I'll defer that. Yeah.
Through you, Mayor. No, this is the option.
This is the only option. It's just pretty well used by families and elderly and disabled. There's only one disabled to go into the art gallery and the library as well, and you'll find that they're used quite a bit to take up more of them parks.
Councillor Wantling, I would say that the tender actually went out with multiple locations and this was the one that got interest. But I think anyone who's concerned with those issues should definitely, during the public consultation phase, make their voices heard through that. So you could certainly encourage people to get involved in that consultation.
Thank you. I think it's a good idea because they're really well utilised, these parks.
Yeah, they are. Anything else? Okay, all in favour? Was that unanimous or no?
No.
That's everyone except Councillor Wantling and those against Councillor Wantling. Okay. Moving on to planning items, item 15.1. We have a recommendation that the application for material change of use for the purpose of short-term accommodation, existing dwelling up to 10 guests on land at 104 Hale Haven Drive, Stanthorpe, described as Lot 2 RP 169985, be approved subject to conditions. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder. Councillor Haslett. Does anyone want to speak for or against that motion?
Yeah, I think it's just important to acknowledge the responses that were received to the application. I agree with the responses the council have given, so I'm satisfied that the application meets all the planning rules. But I think it's important that we acknowledge that there were some people who objected to parts of this application and that those issues have been addressed.
Councillor McDonald.
Mayor, I highlight once again, when you look at the background to this situation, we've got the cart before the horse again, and I just wonder at times, are we being strong enough on these type of situations? Coming to us after the fact, And as a council, I would like to see us actually be proactively involved in this, and if these people need to be, obviously, as they were, spoken to, etc. But there needs to be some recourse in regards to this type of thing, because we've got people building buildings wherever they want. We've got people operating short-term accommodation. They've been doing it for 3 years without the approvals. I think we need to start looking at these processes.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. I would note that as Council continues to look at the approvals for short-term accommodation and short-term camping in the region, we will increasingly see places being regularised. So that is something that I expect will continue, but in the budget process we can look at implications for that. So if we do that as part of the budget process in terms of what happens if people are operating illegally in the area, that's a place to ensure that we have the ability for recourse, because we can't do it on a case-by-case basis. We need to have it embedded in our fees and charges. So,
thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Histroical.
I did a drive-by because it's just around the corner from where I live to have a look at this, particularly in mind with there's a submission note there. The current landscaping does not meet the landscaping code, as it did not retain any existing vegetation, and this bit particularly, and does not make a positive contribution to the streetscape. I have some experience in the area of garden landscaping, and my prediction will be that in 5 years' time this will be one of the showcase gardens of the Granite Belt. The landscaping is absolutely top-notch. The plantings that have been chosen are brilliant for our climate, for bushfire reduction, and it's going to be an incredible garden. So I think we need to be very mindful when we're criticising landscaping, when people are putting such effort into doing such a well thought out job. And I'm pleased to see that our planning staff have done that.
Thank you, Councillor Castle. Anyone else? Okay, all in favour? It's unanimous, thank you. Item 15.2, we have a recommendation that the application for realignment of boundaries 2 lots into 2 lots on land at 11412 Cunningham Highway and Freestone Road, Clinton Vale, described as Lot 1 ML 2118 and Lot 2 ML 477, be approved subject to conditions.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion regarding this one. Maybe there could be more information garnered from the applicant and submitters, and I think it's very important that councillors go and stand on site and understand what we're dealing with here, because there is a few other impinging factors I think we will have to deal with as a council future down the track.
So is that a motion to lay it on the table?
Correct.
For April?
Lay it on the table.
Councillor Bartley. Okay.
Until April meeting.
Yes, lay it
Till
on
the
the
April
table. Yeah, I think the number of questions that have come from councillors indicate that we might need to look at it more closely. So all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 15.3, the Pest Management Advisory Committee meeting. We have a recommendation that council receive the minutes of the Pest Management Advisory Committee meeting held in Warwick on Thursday, 30th February 2025. Do I have a mover for that, Councillor? Yes. And a seconder? Councillor Dean, thank you. Does anyone want to speak to that motion? Yes, Councillor Pidgeon.
It's been exciting. I've only just started, obviously, on the Pest Management Committee, but it's been very exciting to see the progression that we're starting to make there. And obviously, we have a very big job in front of us in the region. So, yeah, but we're starting. We've got to start somewhere. So I just think that that's very important, but it's very good to see so many committees willing to bring all of their information and be working together there.
Yeah, I'd just like to support Councillor Pidgeon. I haven't actually been able to attend very many pest management meetings over the last few years, but I did attend that particular meeting and I was very impressed with the amount of knowledge that was shared by other people within the room, and Councillor Pidgeon did a very good job of chairing the meeting and keeping it flowing. So I look forward to seeing this progress a lot further now as well. I think there's a lot that we can do, and in conjunction with all those people that were there supporting, it'll be well worthwhile.
All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 15.4, we have a recommendation that council resolve to endorse the Darling Downs-Moreton Rabbit Board proposed budget and operational plan for 2025 and 2026. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Pidgeon, and a seconder, Councillor Bartley, thank you. Does anyone want to speak to that motion?
I will. The rabbit board, well, obviously, it's a very, very important part of our agricultural sector. The job that the board is doing is next level. They're diligent in all of their works and everything that they're setting out to achieve. And I'd just like to congratulate them on what they're actually, the operational staff are actually doing out there on the ground. Councillor Richters.
Yeah, Mayor, whilst I won't be opposing this recommendation, I would just like to point out that CPI is currently 2.5%, not 3.5%. And such, I think that should have been factored into their considerations.
Madam Mayor, this is a precept. The minister has to approve what they do as a statutory body. If their precept is acceptable by the minister, then it's acceptable, we pay, being a precept. So we can't suggest they lower or increase or otherwise, providing their performance is right and their finances are right and the minister sees it that way, then the council's pay.
My apologies, Mayor, I actually wasn't specifically saying that this group should change it. I think if that's the minister's decision, then the minister should.
Yes, sorry. You'd spoken to the motion, Councillor Richters, and now Councillor Bartley has spoken to the motion. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? No. Okay. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 15.5, we have a recommendation that council endorse the permanent closure of the impoundment boxes after hours at the Warwick and Stanthorpe Animal Pounds and have the impoundment boxes open during council's business hours only. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Dean, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Haslett, thank you. Does anyone want to speak to that motion? Councillor Wantling?
After reviewing the dropping numbers of impoundments for the last 6 months of 2024, I'm a little concerned. Do we keep statistics on stray animal sightings, dumped animals, livestock attacks, and also receive similar figures from rescue facilities? Also, the decreased number of cats being surrendered could become a concern to our native animals. If these animals are being dumped in rural areas, could we review this in 12 months just to check?
Are you suggesting an amendment to the motion, Councillor Wantling, or simply or asking a question?
Yeah, I'm asking a question, but is it possible to review this in 12 months to make sure that there is an increase of stray animals, or because it's just a little bit early at 6 months?
Through you, Mayor, if I may, can we perhaps split that?
Yep.
And can I defer to our acting GM to ask the first question about monitoring, and can I take on notice given that that's reviewing it in 6 or 12 months?
Yeah,
12 months.
just in 12 months to make sure that.
I'll take that one, please.
I would concur with Councillor Wantling.
We actually.
Sorry.
Thank you, but can I ask our Manager of Environmental Services about the numbers, please?
Yes, so in regards to numbers of stray, the only thing we've got to go on is the number of ferrets, and there has been no noticeable increase in those numbers, or patrols that our officers do, so there's been no evidence of any increase in those numbers. In terms of feral cats, we do still accept them during business hours, so we can definitely still accept them. There's no impact on our services.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And we'll take on notice.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor McDonald was speaking before we.
My apologies, Mayor.
Are you speaking for or against the motion, Councillor McDonald? All
Against.
questions. Speaking against the motion.
Just in regards to the $100 fee, what was the fee previously?
Through you, Melissa, there was no fee for surrendering prior to this trial.
So through you, Mayor, the concern that I have is obviously during a cost of living crisis, people have animals that they can't necessarily deal with, and the choice between putting food on the table and taking the puppy to the pound and then having to pay another $100 for that is an impost that I think may be too great on the families within the region. I do understand that there are costs involved in this, and certainly for our organisation as well, but I think that needs to be looked at, that particular price being $100 for me, and I think for many families out there noting the situation that they're in at the moment, I think that is rather excessive, and I think also maybe prohibitive to people actually bringing their animals in and therefore creating a dumping crisis, exactly what Councillor Watling is actually indicating.
Councillor McDonald, the recommendation is in relation to whether the impoundment boxes are open after hours or not. I think issues of fees are justified, but the discussion for those are in our fees and charges discussion at the budget. They are not actually what we are deciding here today.
It's part of the briefing, however. Mayor?
Mayor, I won't be supporting this motion. I think that we've given it a trial. I think that there might be a compromise that we could come to, but I don't believe this is the solution. I appreciate all the concerns around staff safety, etc. I do appreciate that, but all of us in this room have supported Southern Downs ARC at some point or other, and the advice that we have received from our only animal rescue entity in this region is that they are at crisis point as a result of this policy specifically. And I don't think that it's fair on us to be dumping problems which we could address through other management methods, or maybe it needs to go back to a workshop and we need to come up with another solution. But the solution isn't to close our pound down and then have the flow-on effect go to a charity organisation for which is not able to sustain their level of operation. Now, if Southern Downs ARC were to close up because they couldn't no longer sustain what they were doing, what then? Like, there would be absolute mayhem as far as animal control in our region. So I think maybe the reason I will be voting against this is that I think that we need to go back to the drawing board, have a conversation, actually include Southern Downs ARC in that conversation, and then come up with a solution that is workable by both parties.
Madam Mayor, I have difficulty supporting the recommendation in the fact that stray animals in a suburban area are an issue. And if they're hard to manage, if you can't take them to an impoundment box, you probably push it onto your neighbour, or you throw it out front. If a cat or a dog is in your yard and you can't find a way of humanely putting it in care, then you pass it on to someone else. That's what will happen. It was an easy avenue. If there was a stray animal in the area, they could put it in the impoundment box and it'd be managed properly by council staff. In the rural, it's generally one way or the other. Stray animals are stray animals and that's it, finished. I won't go into that. But in an urban environment, I think you need an avenue for people to be able to manage and address for the animals' welfare and the residents. And then this is a way of doing it, having that impoundment box there.
I will be supporting the motion, as I think it's really important to have measures in place for responsible pet ownership. I think people will think twice about breeding animals and also desexing the animals if they don't want to breed, so that they can prevent excessive animals in the area. And I think it's important to note that they do still accept feral animals at no cost. It's just that they can't do it after hours. So I think it's important to protect staff as well. And I think that the only change really is the impoundment after hours impoundment boxes. So I think I'll be supporting the motion.
Councillor Hustle.
Thank you, Mayor. For me, the big one here is the safety of staff. And that's a real concern. If our staff have been being put in a situation where they may be injured, we need to do something about that, and this helps.
Yeah, and I will also be speaking for the motion. I think that our staff who work day in and day out in this space have made recommendations to us. I would notice it's the second time today that people have referred to requiring a workshop on something. We had a workshop. We have had workshops, and the staff actually presented to us and offered us the opportunity to feedback and discuss this item. So we have had a workshop on this. I think if staff are recommending it, I actually think in a case where A, staff safety is important, then we need to support our staff. But two, I don't want to see ratepayers put to additional costs for out of hours care for a small number of strays. I don't think it's justified, and while I acknowledge there is a small problem, I don't think it's big enough to actually require additional staff over the weekend, which is what we would need to do if we had an out of hours service. So I will be speaking for the motion.
Just to add on, Madam Mayor, I think
Councillor Bartley, you've already spoken. Are you the mover or are you?
no, I'm just commenting.
Councillor Dean wants you, so anyone else who wants to speak? No, do you want to write it for reply, Councillor Dean? No. Okay, all those in favour? We have Councillors Haslett, Dean, Pidgeon, Windle and Hamilton. And those against, Councillors Wantling, Bartley, Richters and McDonald. Thank you. Okay, item 15.6. We have a recommendation that Council adopt the Biodiversity Southern Downs Assets and Corridor Strategy 2025 to 2028. I'm actually going to move a procedural motion that we lay this on the table to the April meeting, because I'm aware that there have been a number of concerns raised over the last few days, and I think it's one where we probably need to again get some answers to some of the questions raised rather than try to answer all of those questions here today. So that's a procedural motion to lay on the table. Those in favour?
Ladies on the table that hasn't been moved and seconded.
The mover? So the motion to lay on the table.
Simple motion. Simple motion, down to debate.
Do you want to debate it?
Just that.
Okay, so that's the yeah, I'm actually happy to discuss the rest of the things that I've listened to. In particular, the questions. That's the questions fleshed out. That's the questions that we're looking at. I'd also like to have vegetation, that's the concrete habitat, and maybe that, because it's a piece of infrastructure. And the public is very concerned with council habitat because of the future, and if there's 5 different groups that have this expansion in it, and now we have, as I said, answer to the regards to that. That does concern me. But to say it's better,
I have a major issue with this whole report. The fact that you read the report carefully, it says most of it's already legislated by state and federal. State have already mapping the tree lines annually with a program called SLATS, S-L-A-T-S. They're doing the work that you're suggesting we go out and do. If it becomes a budget line item, then that may affect my opinion on the budget as well. So I believe we're stepping away from core business. We're getting the reputations of Green Council, which I'm very concerned about, particularly the comments coming out of the agriculture sector.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. I would say that this is actually a requirement of the Environment Sustainability Strategy adopted by the prior council. So if anyone has a reputation, it should probably be the prior council that adopted a strategy that required this very strategy to be brought forward. However, I will move a procedural motion that we lay it on the table. I was contacted overnight. I have a number of messages and emails that I haven't been able to return or address, and I think that, you know, clearly there's a number of issues that we probably need to have a look at before we actually vote on this. So I would suggest laying it on the table so that we can have a further briefing and question session before the next meeting. So all in favour? Unanimous, thank you.
Is that April meeting?
Till April, yeah. Okay, we have no reports of deputation. So moving on to confidential business items. We have a recommendation that the meeting be closed to the public and move into committee to discuss the following items which are considered confidential in accordance with section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to the following as indicated. Rate concession. This item is considered confidential in accordance with 254J3D of the Local Government Regulation 2012 as it contains information relating to rating concessions. And 17.2, this item is considered confidential in accordance with section 254J3B of the Local Government Regulation 2012 as it contains information relating to industrial matters affecting employees. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Windle, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Richters. All those in favour? thank you. Okay, recommendation for 17.1, that council does not allow concession on sewage access charges for PID 93770. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Haslett, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Bartley, thank you. Shall we go to a vote on that?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to state that I won't be supporting the motion, and that whilst I don't fully disagree with the recommendation, there's only a small component of it that I disagree with, hence why I'll be voting against.
Councillor Richters. Does anyone else want to speak for or against the motion? No. All in favour? That's everyone except Councillor Richters, and against Councillor Richters. Thank you. And moving on to item 17.2. Thank you, Marion. I have a recommendation that under section 1961 of the Local Government Act 2009, Council approves the realignment of SDRC functions subject to staff and union consultation and consideration of their feedback. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, and a seconder, Councillor Pidgeon. Thank you. Are we happy to go to a vote on that? Happy to go to a vote? Yes. Okay. All in favour? That's everyone in favour? Yep. Everyone except Councillor Bartley, and those against Councillor Bartley. Thank you. I'll move that we close the meeting at 10:51. All in favour?